Okay, let's get into this. Today's deep dive, it's about something that feels intangible but hits hard, words.
Right. Not just any words, but the kind that wound, that control.
Yeah,
Verbal abuse.
exactly. We're talking demeaning language, constant put-downs, yelling, threats, even just dismissing how someone feels again and again.
And the impact is, well, it's not physical, but it's devastating. Psychological harm, stress, depression, it crushes self-esteem.
It makes leaving those situations incredibly difficult. And historically, proving that kind of harm legally, that was tricky.
Mm-hmm. How do you quantify a broken spirit in court? It's been a challenge.
But that's what's fascinating about the sources you shared. South African law does grapple with this. It doesn't just shrug off verbal abuse as just words.
Got it all. It acknowledges the harm and provides real legal consequences. That's what we're digging into today.
So SA law doesn't have one single verbal abuse crime, right? It's woven into different areas.
Precisely. It depends on the context. Several legal frameworks come into play.
Okay, so let's start with relationships. If it's happening at home, spouses, partners, family, dating.
Then the Domestic Violence Act, the DVA, is key. Your sources highlight that it explicitly lists verbal abuse as a form of emotional and psychological abuse.
So it's named right there in the act.
Yes, and under the DVA, a victim can go to court and apply for a protection order, civil process.
And that order can specifically say, stop the verbal abuse.
It can. It directs the abuser to stop specific harmful behaviors, including verbal ones. But here's the crucial part. Breaking that order, that's not just frowned upon, it's a criminal offense.
A criminal offense. Really? So ignoring the court order has actual teeth.
Big teeth, fines, even imprisonment, potentially up to 5 years or 10 for repeat offenses based on some interpretations. The law takes violating that protection seriously.
Okay, that's significant for domestic settings, but what about outside the home, like workplace bullying or a neighbor or online stuff?
Yeah, that's where the Protection from Harassment Act, the PHA, comes in. It covers harassment outside those domestic relationships.
And it also includes words.
Explicitly. Verbal communication can count as harassment under the PHA.
If it causes harm.
Right. If the conduct causes harm, and harm is defined broadly, including mental, psychological, emotional harm, or makes you reasonably believe harm might occur.
So, similar process, you can get a civil protection order.
You can. And just like the DVA, violating that PHA protection order is also a criminal offense.
Also with fines or jail time?
Yes, up to 5 years imprisonment, potentially. It's vital for things like cyberstalking or persistent harassment from someone you don't live with.
So these protection orders are powerful because breaching them triggers criminal charges. But are there times when really bad verbal stuff is a crime straight away, without needing an order first?
Good question. Yes, under common law. One example is crimen injuria.
Crimen injuria?
Yeah.
Sounds serious. What is it?
It's unlawfully and intentionally impairing someone's dignity or privacy. Think really serious insults, maybe racial slurs, deeply offensive language, causing real psychological harm.
Like a direct attack on someone's dignity.
Exactly. And that's a direct criminal charge. It leads to a criminal record, potentially fines or jail time.
And the sources mention common assault too, which surprised me. I always think of assault as physical.
That's a really interesting point the sources raise. While physical force is common, the law also recognizes that verbal threats,
Just threats.
verbal threats or intimidation that make you genuinely fear for your immediate safety or put you in such a state of fear that harm is foreseeable. That can be common assault.
Wow. So the fear itself, caused by words, can constitute assault.
In certain circumstances, yes. And that's a direct criminal offense too, with penalties like fines or imprisonment. It shows the law gets the impact of words.
Okay, so pulling it all together. DVA, PHA, crimen injuria, even common assault. South African law is clearly saying non-physical harm is real harm. Psychological, emotional distress, fear. It matters legally.
It's a vital recognition. And victims have options. Report to the police, apply for protection orders, court clerks can help with the forms, the affidavits detailing what happened.
And you can pursue both routes sometimes, civil order and criminal charges.
Depending on the specifics, yes.
All right.
And documenting everything, dates, times, what was said, any witnesses, that's crucial evidence, especially when there are no physical marks.
So the big takeaway for you listening, in South Africa, verbal abuse isn't legally invisible, it's actionable. There are rights, there are legal paths for protection and for justice.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. If the law recognizes how seriously harmful verbal abuse can be, What does that say about our own responsibility, in our daily lives, in our communities, workplaces?
Yeah.
How should we be identifying and challenging this kind of behavior before it ever needs lawyers and courts?